So when I woke up from coma and when I could speak, I told the doctors and I told my sister I'm pregnant.
Oh, wow. Oh, Jesus. Were they like, not anymore?
My sister was like, no, honey, you're not. I was like, yeah, I am, but nobody's believing me.
Oh.
But it wasn't actually a fun fact. I have a coil, and you could actually see, I have a picture where you can see the coil on a scan. So they knew from the get-go, like, oh, she's not pregnant.
Because if you were pregnant, then God was doing some trickster things. He was like, we need another Jesus. Okay, well, guys, we are joined by our dear friend and OG listener of the podcast, Hannah Maria, all the way from Sweden by way of Estonia. Do you guys know the capital of Estonia?
I believe
Tallinn.
it's
Tallinn?
Tallinn.
That's right. That's right. And we knew that. We knew that before we asked Hannah Maria.
100%.
Hannah Maria, thank you so much for joining us today. So excited to talk to you.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about a horrific accident that you were involved in. And first, before we do that, how do you feel about talking about something that is obviously so inherently traumatic?
I feel completely fine because it always comes up, so I don't have particular feelings towards it. I think it also helps me to sort of take it back because it feels so far away, even if it was 2.5 years ago. Because it's hard to, like, when I read my medical journals, I'm like, oh my God, I hope she's good. I hope she's fine. My assumption will be that she's dead, but I feel I don't mind talking about it.
Wait. Do you mean like a doctor or like a healthcare provider was writing some sort of journal being like, I hope she's good. Who knows? She might die.
No. She was writing in the past, and when you're rereading what you wrote, you're like, it's hard to believe that was you. That's what I was understanding. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that from my car accident. Like when you when you think about everything in isolation, and you
minute and a half for him.
If you imagine, if you imagine that what you're reading wasn't about you, it's about somebody else, and you're reading something, and you're going, oh, like if I was reading this same thing and it's about somebody else, what would my conclusion be about like what the outcome was? You know, it's pretty easy to think like.
Well, wait till Hannah Maria tells us about her pelvis, and then you can chime in again about your pelvis.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I need to ask though. Sorry, I've never really heard somebody, at least not anybody, refer to something they wrote about their experience as a medical journal. Did you journal before? Did you just start writing a journal when you were in your accident? What's a medical journal?
God, I mean, it might be the fact that English is not my first language, but isn't it called medical journal?
It
is in Estonian and in Swedish. It is like a medical journal.
Okay, so is that something that you wrote, or like your records, or like
or are you like conscribed to do this by law?
I think everybody has to, like, isn't it like if you go to the hospital, they have to write down what has happened?
Yes. You're talking about
okay.
We're like the translation to North America is a medical record. Not like I'm jotting down how I feel about being hit by a car or whatever, but the records that the hospital is keeping as a part of your accident, what happened to you.
Wait, no, I'm super confused. I thought you said you are the one who's writing this.
No, it was the doctors.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Saying that, not going on a tangent, my sister, throughout sort of the aftermath of the accident, she journaled in my journal, so I can read back of what happened through her eyes.
Right. Okay. Well, take us through it. Let us relive this through Let's all combine our eyes together and relive this accident that you went through. Take us through the day prior to what happened, what you recall.
Yeah. Well, as a bit of a backstory, the accident happened in Estonia. It was 19th of July 2022, so it was summer holidays that went horribly wrong. I managed to be at home for 2 days, and on a third day, I hopped into the car to go see my grandma.
A car? Oh my God, okay. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
When you said it happened in Estonia, I figured it was like a horse and horse on carriage collision of some sort.
Wow, that's such an American thing to say.
He's horribly insensitive. If you didn't know that from being an OG listener.
I'm familiar with that.
Sorry, continue.
We don't have internet. For a very long time, jokes aside, we didn't even have H&M. So
well, actually, I will say this. So I do know this. Estonia, was born in 1991, 1992, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, several.
So for a country to be born in 1992, a country that's younger than me, I'm figuring maybe they don't have cars.
Well,
that's
we're thinking,
not that crazy.
post, Soviet Union, that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Breakup, post-Soviet Union breakup.
Okay, right. So it existed.
It's not like the land and place wasn't there before 19.
I don't know how it works, dude.
Yeah, the land, the land and people were there, and then a huge empire broke up, and a whole bunch of countries came into existence.
Got it. Okay, so you hopped in the car.
Hopped into my mom's car to go see my grandma. It was sort of like a summer day, so it was warm, sunny, but it had like showers of rain throughout the day. And also, what I'm going to say now, none of it I can remember. So the actual day off, I can't remember myself. So everything sort of from that moment to about a month forward is not based on my memories. There is some bits and pieces, but not really, because I can't remember that anymore. Or I never did. I guess it's the best way to put that. But I chopped into the car. I've driven the road for decades. So it wasn't sort of a new road for me. I knew exactly all the curves, everything that's going to happen on the road, minus a car accident, of course. But I drove for about half an hour to 40 minutes and approached a curve. And at that moment, I now, of course, know it was raining heavily. So when I approached the curve of the road, towards me came a big truck. And while I was sort of parallel to the truck, the back bit of the truck got into a water slide and ended up blocking the whole lane where I was driving.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, according to the police investigation, had a second to react, which, you guys drive, it's not enough time to react. I had a feeling that maybe I tried to turn to the right a bit based on how the car was damaged. But I don't think I did. I think it was just the fact that the car slid into the road under an angle.
Do you have any recollections of I know you said it's pretty much all gone, but is there anything left of of that second where the brain goes, something's about to happen? Something really bad's about to happen. Nothing. Everything's gone.
I've pondered about it. I've thought maybe I'm going to have flashbacks. I haven't so far, so I think it's all gone. I am thinking I wonder what music was I listening when it happened. What is the soundtrack to my almost dying?
Yeah.
What would you guess? What would be your guess if you were let's just imagine you're belting out a song right before this happens. What's the song that you were probably just
Hit
singing,
me, baby,
singing
one
at the
more
top?
time.
Yeah. I was thinking Alanis Morissette or something.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it wasn't a good song, because I heard somebody once saying how they never listen to good music on an airplane because they don't want that to be the soundtrack of their death.
I'm just saying,
you want shitty music? You want to die to just listening to
but
the Wiggles?
But why would that even matter? Because if you were in a plane crash, you're likely not going to survive.
Yeah, but if you do, then you'll never be able to listen to that banger song again.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
In the last week, there was 4 different airplane crashes. So,
yeah, but there's also 400,000 flights.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, now you're talking logic, and it's.
I'm now just going to listen to horror soundtracks on every flight I get on, just to be like, well, if this, some fitting music.
I swear to God, I don't listen to good music because I don't want this to be the soundtrack. So, but it could have been a shit Estonian radio, or maybe a retro music, because we have a retro channel I usually listen
guys,
to.
Do you guys listen to a lot of Celine Dion?
We don't.
Good.
I don't think so. I like Celine Dion, but
sure.
Guys, this explains a lot. She said that she doesn't listen to good music, or what I'm guessing is anything good audio-wise anyway, and she listens to Sickboy.
She's probably listening to us yammer on about something stupid. And
I
then
could have had, so
good Lord.
Yeah.
thanks
there
for
you go.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're welcome.
Sorry.
How the tables have turned. So, and if anybody's listening to this while they're driving right now, you know,
Oh my God.
Pay attention.
Pay attention.
Sorry.
Pay attention to the road and slow down. And when you say truck, now, do you what kind of truck are we talking? Like a pickup truck, or are we talking like an 18-wheeler truck that's towing like a big trailer type thing?
Or one of those little tiny trucks that we see here in Canada, and they're really tiny little cute trucks that we wish we could buy here, but we only
I
see
can
them
tell
in
you by
Europe.
the photos I've seen, it was not one of those.
Okay.
I do have a picture of a truck. I would say we don't have 18-wheelers, but I would say more like an 80-wheeler.
Okay,
So
sure.
it's quite a long back part. I've now since learned that I think it was transporting wheat, maybe.
Wheat
and-
or weed?
Weed, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. That makes more
I'm
sense.
I'm joking.
yeah. He was just doing bowls. Yeah. Okay, so the car, you go. I mean, you have a head-on collision. Do you know? Were you told how fast you or the truck, or both of you were going at the time?
Well, I know sort of, because that's also sort of a fact about when we got to the investigation, because it was a 90 road, but where the truck was coming from had a recommendation to drive with 70 kilometers per hour with bad weather condition. I don't think that I think the truck was somewhere like 85, 87, and I think I was like 87, because the truck actually had a camera, so I think they were able to sort of pinpoint or nail down how fast it was
Oh,
going.
wow.
Did you ever get to see the video?
I didn't. My lawyer said that he had it, but he never sent it to me, so I've never seen it.
Would you want to see it if you could?
That one I would want to see. I've
Yeah.
seen a picture of myself in the car. They promised to send me that picture. They didn't, and I'm glad they didn't, because I think one was enough time to
Yeah.
see it. So
There's so many like interesting things about that in sort of like the memory or lack thereof, and like how we feel about how we feel about accidents. Because like I mean I would imagine that your whole perspective on this entire experience would be probably dramatically different if you could remember everything, if you like just and in like a lot of different ways, in like the way that you feel about driving going forward, or the way that you feel about trucks, or the way that you feel about the music that you were listening to, or like whatever. That whole experience would be a lot different if you could go back, if you could recall what those things were. And it's an interesting question in like traumatic events in general, whether it's, and this is probably just completely subjective, whether it's better to remember or not to remember. I would
I'm
guess
sure there's some
not.
sort of research though, because like when you say that you don't remember, the day before and the month after, like, is that a mechanism of the brain just saying like, we don't need
Maybe.
to remember
Yeah, I don't
this
know.
because it's just too horrific?
Or just a symptom of a brain
Have you
injury.
thought about that?
yeah, I do think it's like a brain's protective mechanism not to remember that. Because
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
even
yeah,
without
yeah.
the memories, I have quite a bit of trauma, so I'm
Yeah.
good without that.
Like I
Yes.
remember, I know you guys are gonna make fun of me again, but like the when I hit the car, like I remember.
For people who don't know, a few years ago, Taylor was riding his bicycle and his tricycle, and he was struck. He had a head-on collision with a taxi,
Yes.
which a taxi cab car.
Yes, and I remember like the things that like really stand out in my memory that will never go away is the powder blue of the windshield when I went into it, and the windshield like spidered and broke everywhere, but it didn't like break and explode. It like breaks into like a million pieces but stays together, and like the powder blue of how the windshield changes to this powder blue when it breaks.
Pretty.
And like the sound and the powder blue of that, and like that like still image is just like burned into my brain.
What was the
Will
sound
definitely
you
never go
made
away.
in that moment?
Dude? I was like,
Yeah,
it was like that.
nice.
Yep, I remember that.
I feel like it's probably more high pitch.
It was, yeah, probably.
So okay, so well then how about this? You know what? I have some photos of the day. Maybe I'll play these for the guys to take a look, and you can kind of they'll probably play through it a little quickly, but you can kind of talk us through what we're seeing. And just a heads up, these are pretty intense, these photos.
Are you okay looking at these photos?
Yeah. I sent them, so.
She sent them to me.
I'm assuming Jared didn't grab them off
I wasn't sure if it was like, hey, like I sent these in advance for some reference, but
Surprise, I got your grandmother to send me these photos.
But that's a good part about not remembering it, so it's like a picture, whatever.
So yeah, so here we see the car. It's off in a ditch, I take it?
Yeah, and it was on the right-hand side of the ditch. So once it collided, it slid with the back part first into the ditch.
Wow.
Wow.
See,
There's
that's
the,
that
powder blue
that's
that
that powder blue.
Yeah.
That's what
It
I'm
is
talking
pretty,
about.
yeah. And this is the driver's side?
Yes.
Wow. Oh my god.
So I was cut out of the car.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa. In Estonia, you drive like on the left-hand side?
Yes.
Like, same in Canada.
And so here we're looking at.
Sorry,
what I'm guessing is
we drive on the right hand side, Brian.
No, of the road, but like the driver's seat is on the left-hand side.
Yeah, sorry.
So this photo here, this is this. I take it this is you on the stretcher.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. And so are those Estonian firefighters in the helmets?
Yes, that's the rescue team.
Wow. Crazy.
What did you think they were, Jer? Like if they weren't that?
Well, I don't know. Not really sure. Could have been a bunch of truck drivers. I'm not sure. Okay, so this photo here, take us through this.
Yeah, so this is a picture I thought it was when I was in coma. I mean, I always say I was in coma, but it wasn't the first days because at first I've now learned since that I didn't have a track, so I had the breathing tube down my neck.
Wow.
So this is about a week in. But that's what everybody has said about me. That like, oh my god, you looked so good.
I was gonna
say that too.
You look pretty. Yeah, you look like you look pretty. You're just taking a nap.
I mean, minus all of the cords that are connected to you.
So for the listeners that are just listening, which is everyone, you have a trach, all right? So that's like a tube going through your through your throat to help you breathe. You've got looks like a feeding tube. Is that what that is in your mouth there?
Correct.
Yeah. And then I showed this photo to my partner, and she who's a nurse and worked in the ICU, and the one thing that she noticed, we can't quite see it because of the way it's cropped, but she was like, oh wow, she's on like four or five different drips. So you have like a number of I'm guessing like pain meds maybe, or like maybe it's the things that are actually keeping you in a coma. I'm not really sure what the drips would be, but
food.
Yeah, food. Yeah, food would probably be one of them. And then we have another photo here, and this one's.
I just do want to say before we move on from that, like, all jokes aside, you do look.
Yeah.
Quite. I mean, considering this is a week after being in an accident related to the car that we just saw, like, did you?
You don't look like the car.
Did you like escape like without a whole bunch of crazy cuts and lacerations and stuff, or can we just not see that stuff from this photo?
Yeah, I escaped it when it comes to my face. I have some like weird scars and like on my knee, but apart from that, like, because that's what everybody said. Like my family said, like, "Oh my God, you looked so good." Like you can't tell that she has survived a head-on collision with a truck. So,
and like,
so the
not even
hematoma
bruising
on my eye was pretty much the worst thing in my face.
Yeah, yeah. You have like one small bruise on your arm. Like you'd think you'd just be a
that even looks like it might be from
like an IV or something. Yeah.
And thinking about your knees, like that's I think the thing that I think about mostly when I think about head-on collisions with cars is like the way that your legs are like if you're in an accident that really crushes the front of the car, like how your legs are just going to be thrust like in towards your body, and like just how that like how massive of like a midsection injury you could get from that.
Yeah.
So this following photo here, this is very interesting. Tell us what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so we're looking at my pelvis X-Fix. So it's like a bar that is connected to the both sides of your pelvis, and then it's connected with a third metal bar across your lower half of your stomach.
I'm familiar with the X-Fix because I remember when I was in my accident, I remember them saying we were really happy that we didn't have to put you in the X-Fix. That's what I remember them telling me that.
And
but
what
I
does
didn't
it
know what
do?
that was.
Yeah. So yeah, explain what the X-Fix is. Like, what's its purpose and why did you need one?
Well, I needed one. What the purpose is, I'm not sure. I guess. I mean, I guess I am, but why I needed it because my pelvis was blown up to pieces. It was
Yeah.
absolutely in pieces. So sort of when it comes to my injuries, I think the midsection took the biggest hit. So my pelvis was one of them.
Yeah.
I
So
believe they use the X-Fix to stabilize your pelvis.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
also have one like internal screw on the left-hand side of my pelvis, which is still there.
Right.
It's crazy how the pelvis, like when you have a pelvic injury, like even if you don't appear to be that injured, like my accident outwardly, you would have been like, oh, he's got some scrapes and cuts. He got hit by a car. That's obviously bad. But then when they arrived on the scene and I was talking about my pelvis, I couldn't get up and it was my hips, like immediately the pelvis is like red alert because if you smash your pelvis, you could rupture a bunch of organs and all that stuff. Like they immediately treat it as like this person could be dead very soon because of all the internal injuries that can happen when you break your pelvis.
Yeah. And again, just for the listeners, the X-Fix, I mean, what it looks like it looks like just some hardware you'd find at like Rona. Like a long pipe with
you wouldn't get it at Rona. Rona's always out of stock of everything.
Right.
You might be able to get it at Home Depot.
Yeah. And connected to that is like a small thin rod that is literally punctured into your body. So it's like it's going through your hip into your pelvis. And I think you're right. Like the whole idea there is to stabilize and sort of lock you into place so that you aren't moving about because you can't put a cast on your pelvis, like it's so internal that you just have to be still.
It's such a big bone.
It's a huge,
Like,
it's an
and it's
enormous
connected
bone.
to so much.
When you're when you're playing Phasmophobia and you're
Yes.
hunting ghosts and
cut this out.
and
It's probably a good idea to cut it
and you want
cutting this.
an easy bone to find. The pelvis is a good
because
one.
it's such a big bone. They put
Don't
me
cut
they,
that
they
out.
put me in a they put me in this like brace until they knew I didn't need the X-Fix.
Yeah.
Like the paramedics, they go, we're going to put you in this because like we actually don't know what's going on here yet, so we're going to put you in this thing. And then when we get to the hospital, we'll figure out whether you need this super intense thing like an X-Fix. Obviously, you'd rather not need that. And then when they found out that I didn't need it, they take the brace
Hannah
off.
Maria, what were the extent of your injuries?
Yeah, so I usually do, I don't know if it's going to be too long-winded, but I usually start from the head and go to
No,
the toes.
give it all. Yeah, from head down. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, so sort of what I can like preface it with is that I was very lucky. So what Taylor mentioned about like internal injuries, we'll get to that, but I must say I was lucky with what happened. But going from head to toe, I had a very serious brain bleed. So I got a traumatic brain injury. I had a big hematoma on my left-hand side, and then I had sort of what they call like a spider web bleed throughout my whole brain. I broke my skull from 3 places, so in the back of my head and on the sides.
God.
I broke my chest bone. My heart was, I don't know if you can call it bruised, because it's your heart, but I think my heart just flew around so much in my chest that it got a bit of a bumbling, I guess. I had 12 broken ribs, so it was 6 on both sides. And
that's
the
like-
ribs
how many
also.
ribs
How many
have?
ribs do you have? Like how many ribs does a human have?
You have
I should know that.
9.
I think 18.
You have 9 on each side, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty sure you have 9 on each side.
Yeah, so I broke 6 on both sides. And then the ribs also punctured my lungs from both sides. Then going down, I had obviously
Oh my God.
smashed pelvis. I broke 1 vertebra, so I think it was L3 or 5, I'm not sure, but one of them. And then I also had a broken hand. I had a broken left femur, so that was completely broken. Going down.
Wow.
I
Femur's a
think
bad
that's
one.
last but not least, my broken a bone that's called a talus. So it's a bit in your foot. That was also on the left-hand side. So I think my right-hand side sort of got away a bit easier. So most of the fractures were on the left-hand side of the body where the truck crashed into
And for
the car,
context,
so.
humans typically have 24 ribs.
Oh, because you have 3 floating ribs
12
on each
pairs.
side.
You have true ribs, 1 to 7, false ribs, 8 to 10, and floating ribs, 12 to 11.
12 to...
Or, sorry, 11 to 12. So, sorry, like 1 to 7, 8 to 10, 11 to 12. You count up. Okay, and then internal injuries, what are we looking at?
We're not looking at any.
Oh,
so apart
okay,
from my heart, my lungs, and my brain, I mean, brain was catastrophic.
Yeah.
But I had no sort of like soft organs, no bleeding, because I was stuck in a car for 45 minutes. So if I had any internal bleedings, I would have bled out.
Wow. And so you mentioned earlier that they put you in a coma.
I fell into coma.
Oh, you fell into coma.
Yeah.
So it
Tripped
wasn't
right into it.
okay. And tell us about that.
Yeah, so when the first responders got on site, I was already in coma. Something I didn't know is that if you fall into coma following a injury to your brain, they rate you on something called Glasgow Coma Scale. It's a scale from 3 to 15 to measure your consciousness. I scored a 3, so I was quite far gone, you could say. But I just fell into coma from the actual accident.
What is a coma? Like when you're
I mean, just being
big nap.
being unconscious.
But I understand that, but like what is the difference? Because like if you get knocked out, you're not in a coma. Like is there a difference?
Well,
like
I think
if you
when
get knocked out, are you briefly in a coma?
No, I don't think so. Because when
like,
you get
what
knocked
is a coma?
out, when you get knocked out, I mean, like, remember the stupid shit we used to do when we were kids, when we knocked each other out?
Yeah.
Put each other in little mini comas.
Yeah, and like, you know, you're out for like seconds, you know, like it's very, very short. Whereas I would assume that there's like a length of time that probably is used to measure a coma. I would imagine.
Yeah. So the key difference is not being knocked out is seconds to minutes, and coma is hours to years, essentially. Responsiveness in being knocked out is you might wake up from stimuli. Coma, you're not responding to stimuli at all.
Mm-hmm. So like Glasgow Coma Scale, is it 0 to 15?
1 to 3.
3 to 15.
3 to 15.
3 to 15.
And you were a 3. Is that like a hey, when you're a 3, it's I'm assuming it's really looking not good, but like is there stats around like, hey, if somebody's a 3 on the scale, it's going to be really difficult getting them to come back from that?
I think so. I mean, I think knowledge is power. I've read a lot, but I read some statistics that 86% of people who score 3 die within the first 24 hours or stay in a vegetative state.
Oh my God! Wow. So you're like you're really defying the odds with with what you were dealing with at the scene.
Yeah.
Just for context here, very interesting. The clinical tool, the Glasgow Coma Scale, it's a tool to assess a person's level of consciousness, and it evaluates and scores 3 main aspects of a person's responsiveness. So the eye opening, the verbal response, and the motor response. And so the total score ranges from 3 to 15, with a higher score indicating better neurological function. So
because it's a 1 to 5 on each of them, and so if you get a 1 on each of them, then you get 3.
Yeah. So the eye opening, you have 1, no response; 2, response to pain; 3, response to voice; 4, spontaneous response, and then you have verbal response, motor response, and so the total score interpretations. 13 to 15 is mild brain injury, or like a normal consciousness. 9 to 12 equals a moderate brain injury or impairment. 3 to 8 is severe brain injury. A score of 8 or below typically indicates a coma. And so you were the lowest of the. You were in a you were super comed. Yeah, you were just like, you can't get more comed than Hannah Maria on that day.
And when
Exactly.
you were in your coma, and you say that your memory for the month afterwards, were you in this state of coma from the accident, like induced by the trauma of the accident for that whole time, or could you have woken up, and did they keep you try to keep you in like a medically induced coma for a longer period of time to help you heal, or what was that? What did that look like?
Yeah, so when I got to the hospital, they tried to wake me up, but I didn't wake up. So it was sort of the first time of them trying, but I was just not having it, I guess. The second time they tried to wake me up was day 7, so a week later. I became a bit more responsive. I didn't open my eyes, but I did start to move the left side of my body, which I was quite happy about because I was not sure about how my left side moves because it was the right side of my brain that was most injured. So they tried to wake me up. I didn't open my eyes. I was a bit more active. I also got a what is it called? So I had the track tube, or not track tube, but the breathing tube down my throat. So I got a gag reflex. So that was actually after that point that they gave me a track, so I'm a bit more comfortable for when I wake up. And then the third time they tried to wake me up was day 11 post accident, and that's when I woke up.
Oh wow. And okay, so I've heard lots of stories of people who have been in a coma, whether it's induced or I guess like involuntary, and stories of people being able to hear their loved ones speaking to them, or kind of be somewhat aware of like the space and time in some way. Did you have any of that, or on the inverse of that, was there a complete lack of like awareness of your reality, and more so kind of like a dream state where you're experiencing things that are like a dream, or is it just black? Is your memory just completely black?
I think unfortunately it's black. There is one thing that I think I might have dreamt, but I didn't hear anything. I don't have any recollection of the time when it happened or sort of the aftermath. Because the doctors always said to my mom, like, hey, like, just talk with her. Like, she hears, she will know, but I have no recollection. But my mom could sit by the side of my bed for hours and speak about nothing. But I can't remember anything in that sense. But there is this one memory that's a good one, I think.
What is the memory?
I think, or at least I have a feeling that I dreamt that I was going to be a surrogate. So when I woke up from coma and when I could speak, I told the doctors and I told my sister I'm pregnant.
Oh, wow. Oh, Jesus. Oh, and oh my God. And were they like, not anymore? Like, were they, what was their reaction? Did they think, oh my God, she was pregnant before the accident, and now we have to explain to her that, like, there's probably no way that she's still pregnant? Or did they go, oh
no,
I feel like they would know
they
when they did the full body assessment whether or not she was.
Yeah, I suppose the doctors would know. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah,
so.
well,
yeah.
my sister was like, no, honey, you're not. I was like, yeah, but nobody's believing me.
Oh,
But it wasn't actually a fun fact. I have a coil, and you could actually see. I have a picture where you can see the coil on a scan. So they knew from the get-go, like, oh, she's not pregnant.
Oh, when you say coil, you mean like an
IUD?
An IUD.
IUD.
Like, yes,
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you were pregnant, then God was doing some trickster things. He was like, we need another Jesus. Hannah Maria's taking a nap. She won't mind. We'll just pop a little Christ in there.
Well, I hoped I could have seen the Jesus, but I didn't. So just a pregnancy.
No Jesus in your dreams.
I am curious. Since we're on the topic, I mean, obviously, an experience like this is something that there's the physical side for sure, but I think for a lot of people, there's also the sort of like existential side where it can sometimes bring on thoughts and feelings about what it means to be a human, and what what it means to live and to die. And, you know, spirituality is very heavily tied with that for a lot of people, depending on their cultural background and their upbringing. Are you a spiritual person? And if so, did this experience play into that at all? Did any of those thoughts come up after this accident?
Yeah, I'd say to an extent. I'm definitely more spiritual than I'm not religious in any shape or form. I don't believe into anything, I guess, but I do. And something I've said since the accident, I always tell to myself, like, trust the universe. So I guess I believe into universe in a way. So I've definitely pondered about that and the meaning of life and death. And I was very uncomfortable with the thought of dying before. But I'm kind of like, well, sort of been there, done that. I mean, I wasn't, but sort of.
I mean, yeah, you came pretty damn close.
Oh, I was close. So,
I mean, in a way, like being in a coma and then coming back, it's like in terms of like your memory of the experience of dying. If you were in a car accident like that and you did die, I mean, you'd probably remember the same thing that you do in your situation, you know, like you don't remember anything. And like, maybe.
Sorry, are you saying that you would probably remember the same things after dying?
I'm saying
I think after you died, you'd be like, I know what song I was listening to.
Sorry, just to clarify what I'm saying is that like Hannah Maria remembers now, or is conscious of like what happened a month after her accident. But in that time in a coma and everything just goes black and you don't remember anything. I mean, if she didn't wake up from the coma, then wouldn't it just be like you got to the same point as you would when you die and
how about stick to the lazy river analogies, okay?
Yeah, because we don't understand.
I think I prefer when you do that.
But I do have a question about waking up from a coma. And
how big was your yawn?
I'm really curious about the experience of like coming back online, like turning back on. What were your first memories like, and how did that go?
Yeah, so I have no memories of actually waking up from coma. And I also read back to one my sister had written that I wasn't really there when I came back. So at first, I couldn't concentrate my eyes on people. I didn't really even open up my eyes. So I think the first week I was conscious. Sometimes I'd open up my eyes and I would fall asleep, come back, fall asleep, but I wasn't really there. So I would say it took me like 2-3 weeks from actually waking up that I had my first memories. I have no memories from the actual ICU because I was transferred to a different unit. But I have no actual memories from the ICU. Saying that, I've made an Instagram reel in the ICU that I have no memory of making.
No way.
Whoa.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Like Roseanne.
What was it? What was it funny? Did you do a dance?
No, I did like a reel about the last month because obviously I was online for a month. So the people who didn't know, they didn't know what had happened.
Wow. And you don't even remember making it?
I don't.
How does it feel watching it? That must be a little bizarre.
It's bizarre, but I feel like how did I have a knowledge of how to actually do it?
Yeah, without the knowledge, without the like ability to retain. Like,
it's kind of like when you get blackout.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you go back on Jared's Facebook profile, which is fully public, you can go back as far as you want and see all the things that he said on Facebook when he was a teenager. Yeah. You can go back and see a whole bunch of videos that Jared took that he doesn't remember.
That's not true, actually, because I was hosting a kids show when I was growing up, and so I was like, no, don't be a naughty boy.
But it is kind of like that, right? When you like when I imagine that's probably a like micro sort of version.
Yeah, except when you do that, it's just a deep sense of shame that you get.
But there's something kind of disconcerting about that. Like
100%
to have this part of your of your not that, but no, I mean,
sorry.
well, gee, I don't know. What the are you saying about Hannah Maria right now?
I thought you were talking about being blackout drunk.
No. I'm saying like to have done something, spoken, shared thoughts, and this piece of your life is, you know, I've also often had the thought where I've had a number of like medical sort of interventions. So when I get a PICC line put in, right, I've had that done multiple times throughout my life, and I have like really severe, high severe anxiety and a phobia of that experience. So much so that when you get a PICC line in, typically you just get a little bit of like pain management. But they because I'm freaking out so much, they give me a bunch of what's called midazolam. And midazolam is essentially you're still awake, but it's a memory eraser. Like it totally wipes your memory. So you're conscious when this is happening, but then all of a sudden when it's over, you have no recollection of this period of time that lasts, I don't know, let's say like an hour or two. And there's something so off-putting about being conscious and awake, yet having zero knowledge or recollection of that period of time. And I do think it's quite a unique experience, because most people have probably, if they've indulged when they were being like a kid or whatever, with alcohol, like yeah, there's that, but this is way different. It's like I don't know. For me, it's really it feels very odd and kind of uncomfortable. I don't know how you feel about it when you went back and watched that video. If there was any feelings of like, oh Jesus, that is so weird.
Read it, to be honest, but I think it's just sort of like how we as humans, we know to do that.
Right.
The picture of my ex-6 that's taken in the ICU. I have no memory from ICU.
Right.
I took the picture.
You took it, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Well, yeah. I mean,
also something that's gonna take your fancy, guys. The first, because I've applied to be in the show twice.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I applied, I don't have a memory of.
That's right.
No.
Yes,
Oh, wow.
I read both applications. The first one was very well written, very detailed, and then it was maybe just under a year later, the second application. And,
Gibberish.
And yeah, I had no clue. It was just I think it was all written in Estonian. No, it was the first thing you said was, "Hey, I applied a while back, but to be quite honest with you, I did it while I was in the ICU, and I have no recollection of what I wrote."
Wow.
And I was like, "Whoa, crazy." Which is also very funny because, not funny that this happened to you, but funny that you were like a fan of the show prior to this happening. And from your application, I know that you had no right to be on the show because we're likely not going to be having a guest on the show who has like a slight allergy to toothpaste. But when the accident happened, one of the first that you're like, you take a picture of the X-Fix and you're like, oh, actually, you know who would love this? I'm going to go to the Sickboy website.
Like, how did I even like figure out how to apply?
Yeah.
Don't ask
That's
me.
That's what's
because it's
really
not
interesting.
easy for people who aren't just fresh out of
It's
it.
really fascinating that you can, this version of you that you can't remember, you have no recollection of, has the capacity to like think of things that you like or use an app that you've used, but like just to be able to do something. It's like it reminds me of like if somebody tells you that you've been sleepwalking or that you were talking in your sleep and you're doing something and you're just like, how did I even know? How did I even know how to use my feet?
It's
By
more like
walking around,
when
I was asleep.
Taylor gets kicked out of the bar when he's blackout drunk, and then
Hey,
somehow
no,
finds
no.
a way to sneak back
Hey.
inside, and you're like, how did he know?
Yeah, because alcohol
how to
because-
do that?
Yeah,
because
when he
alcohol
stands
makes
up
you
and
very
piss,
sneaky.
it covers the bed and piss and then
No,
lays
no,
back in
no,
it
no,
like a fluffy dog.
No.
Hannah Maria, I mean, just kind of fast forwarding here and to take us a little bit further ahead. How long was your recovery, and what did that look like? What was the sort of hardest part for you recovery wise, as it pertains to your physical body or maybe your brain, since you had a severe brain injury?
So in terms of the recovery, I guess I was in hospital for 2 months.
Wow.
So I was in the hospital in Estonia for 2 months. I was in inpatient rehabilitation for about a week and a half. And then I wanted to be transferred back to Sweden because I wanted to be part of the medical system here. I was in a hospital in Sweden for a week and then a week and a half in inpatient rehabilitation. where I got out October 2022. So it was however many months, 3 months after.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of where the recovery that I had to do most myself.
Yeah.
It was mostly physical recovery because with my brain, they just waited for the blood to go away. And that was sort of it. There wasn't a lot of active rehabilitation. I did have like a neuro team that came, but we mostly dealt with everything sort of around the accident. The fact that I didn't have a job, I was on a sick leave, I had a trauma. I couldn't really speak too well in the beginning, so I had a speech therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So it was everything sort of around that. It was a lot of physical therapy, physiotherapists, but it was pretty much what I myself had to do. So it was very little sort of connection with the hospital.
What does it look like in? I would assume the most applicable way to ask this question is in the context of Sweden, since that's where you transferred to and then were living. What does that look like when you are in like a severe accident and you can't work and you can't, you really I'm assuming you have no capacity to earn income. I guess it depends on the situation, but like, what does that look like when you're in?
I feel like
you
it's
can't
gonna
work?
be awesome compared to us.
It is pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So when you are on a sick leave, you earn 80% of your salary before the accident or before your sick leave. So I was, of course, employed before the accident, and I earned 80% of my salary every month for about a year.
Wow.
So in that sense, I felt very ready to go back to work 3 months after the accident.
Right. So you milked
of course,
it. Nice.
I wasn't ready to go back to, but in my mind I was like, yeah, but I'm fine. I can go back, but I wasn't fine to go back.
What were you doing for work at the time?
Before the accident, I was a rental broker. I'm not anymore. I lost my job as an aftermath, I guess. But yeah, I was a rental broker before.
As an aftermath of like the accident, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a different story, but I'm incredibly lucky to live where I live, so I could take the time to be able to recover. So I had about a year to be off work and just to concentrate on recovery.
Wow.
It's
really
just
amazing.
Unbelievable to be talking to you 2.5 years out from something so traumatic and to see you you look incredible. What a miraculous recovery.
Yeah, it has been. I had a lot of luck, but something I always say is it wasn't just luck. I worked very hard to be where I am today. The recovery process and how I put my mind to it, I was relentless. I didn't sit at home and watch TV the whole day. I was going on walks, going to the gym, reading books. I was on it as much as it can be to make sure I come back from it.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is the biggest thing that this accident has taken away from you?
Oh, that question. I knew it's going to come, and I didn't even think about it. What has taken away from me? Oh my God. I don't think I'm going to be able to come up with something good, I guess.
Looks like the traumatic brain injury didn't quite fully recover. I would say, if I was a guess.
It probably didn't, because me and my partner, we have a joke that if I freeze, if I can't remember words, we say #TBI. So we make jokes about it. So I think I'm having a right old TBI moment.
Well, how about this? Maybe this question's easier. What would you say is the biggest thing that it's given you?
Perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Perspective about everything, about life, about people around me. I mean, I don't walk around every day being happy about stuff and not being bothered about things, but I have a lot of perspective about how I want to continue my life and what matters in life. So perspective is definitely the biggest thing.
Did it change the way that you think about death?
Yeah, it did. I was very uncomfortable with the thought of dying before, but now I don't. Because as I said, like it almost already happened, and if it happens, it happens. Like there's not going to be a change in dying. Because I mean, it's going to happen with all of us one point in time. So
It's like being on a lazy river.
Yeah, there you go, Bri.
Heading towards a waterfall.
Yeah.
Yes, brother.
You're in your
and
element.
Fuck yeah.
It's flowing really fast, and
Give
there's
it to
nothing
us.
you can do about
Yes.
it. And you know,
This is where you shine.
you just go right off the edge, and that's it.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay.
Wow, they got to shut that park down.
Yeah.
Hannah Maria, firstly, thank you for
thank you.
for being on the show and being so open and vulnerable to relive this experience with us and to roll with the punches and go with the jokes. All jokes aside, what you experienced is horrific, and the fact that you made such a recovery is just so beautiful to see. Secondly, thank you for being on this ride with us since the early days. And I just, I really do love the fact that you were a fan of the show, had no reason to be on the show, and one of the first things you thought when you couldn't even think was, I got to get on the show. And I'm glad that we were able to hit your application, find it, and get you on the show, because this has been just a beautiful conversation, and we really appreciate your time and your words and your perspective.
Thank you. Also, I think I might still be a Patreon because I could log into Discord. So I'm the least active person there, but I'm on it. So
Sweet,
We
yeah.
appreciate
Just
that.
send us 80% of your take home all this time. Anna Maria, thank you. This has been such a delight.
thank you.